The night my own son threw me out of his house, I stood on the sidewalk holding a small suitcase and wondered when I had become invisible. Not unwanted, not unloved, just worthless. The streetlight flickered above me, casting long shadows that stretched and shrank with every passing car. My hands trembled, not from the cold, but from the shock of realizing how quickly a lifetime of sacrifice could be erased. "Dad, you can't stay here anymore," Eric said, his voice flat, his eyes fixed on the door behind him instead of my face. "We're not running a shelter." Behind him, his wife folded her arms, lips tight, already done with me. She didn't argue, she didn't hesitate. She had wanted this long before he said the words out loud. I could see it in her eyes, the relief, the finality. I was 72 years old. I had raised Eric alone after his mother died suddenly when he was just 8. I remembered the night she passed, how Eric cried himself to sleep clutching my shirt, how I promised him I would never leave him. I worked double shifts at the factory, skipped meals, wore the same boots until the soles split and my socks soaked through, just so he could have more than I ever did. I sold my father's watch, the only thing my own father left me, to pay for Eric's college books. I told myself objects could be replaced, time couldn't, love couldn't. And now, because I wore worn clothes and drove an old pickup, they thought I was poor. They thought I was nothing. I nodded slowly. Pride has a strange way of surviving even when your heart is breaking into pieces you don't know how to collect. "I understand," I said quietly, even though I didn't. Eric handed me my suitcase like it was something he wanted out of his house as fast as possible. He didn't look inside. He didn't ask if I had enough. The door closed, the lock clicked. That sound followed me for a long time. I stood there for a moment, hoping foolishly that the door might open again, that he'd call my name, that he'd remember who I was, but nothing happened. The house went silent, and I finally turned away. I didn't argue. I didn't remind him who paid for his education or who sat by his bed all night when he had pneumonia at 12. I didn't remind him of the years I came home exhausted and still helped with homework, or the weekends I skipped rest so he could play baseball. I just walked away. That night I slept on a bench near the bus station, my coat pulled tight, my suitcase tucked under my arm. The ceiling lights flickered above me, buzzing softly. I stared at them, replaying memories I couldn't escape, birthdays with homemade cakes, scraped knees I kissed better, late-night talks about his dreams and fears. When did love become conditional? When did being a father stop being enough? The truth was simple. Eric believed I had no money. He saw old shoes, a cheap phone, a rusted truck that rattled when it started, and assumed I had failed at life. In his world, success had a look, a brand, a shine, and I didn't fit it. What he never knew, what no one knew, was that I had spent 30 years quietly building something and hiding it. After my wife died, I learned a painful lesson. People change when money enters the picture. Friends act differently, family expectations shift, love starts to feel like a transaction, so I lived simply, I invested quietly, I bought land under trusts, put money where it could grow without noise. I didn't chase luxury or attention. I chased security, peace, and freedom from being used. By the time Eric was grown, married, and settled into his career, I was worth more than most people he admired. But I never told him. I wanted my son to respect me for who I was, not what I owned. I wanted to be valued as a father, not a safety net. I guess I got my answer. The next morning, stiff and sore, I rented a small room above a bakery. The stairs creaked, the walls were thin, and the window looked out over an alley, but it was mine. The smell of fresh bread woke me every day. It reminded me that even broken things can rise again if given time and warmth. I didn't call Eric, I didn't explain myself, I went quiet. Weeks passed, then months. I found a routine, morning walks, coffee at the same small diner where no one asked questions, evenings spent reading or watching the sun fade into orange and purple from my window. The pain didn't disappear, but it softened. It stopped screaming and started whispering. One morning, my financial advisor called. "Mr. Ned, Your lease on the commercial land expires soon. Would you like to renew or liquidate? I looked out the window at people rushing through life, staring at their phones, chasing things that never last. I thought about my son's face the night he closed that door. Liquidate, I said. It's time. A week later, I walked into the largest luxury car dealership in the city. Same old shoes, same modest coat, same calm posture. I didn't dress up. I didn't need to. The salesman glanced at me and almost ignored me. His smile was polite but thin. Sir, the used cars are across the street. I'm here for the new models, I said calmly. He blinked, unsure if I was joking. He hesitated, then nodded. 10 minutes later, the manager stood beside me, suddenly attentive, offering coffee, asking questions, calling me sir with a different tone. I wasn't browsing, I wasn't dreaming. I was buying cash. Then I saw Eric walk in with a coworker. They were laughing, confident, loud, until he saw me. Dad, he said, confused, his voice cracking slightly. What are you doing here? The manager turned to him. You know Mr. Ned. Eric swallowed. That's my father. The air shifted. The smiles froze. Suddenly I mattered. Eric looked at the papers on the desk, at the cars behind me, at the manager standing respectfully at my side. His face changed as understanding slowly settled in. Dad, I thought you were, poor, I finished for him. He didn't deny it. I thought you had nothing, he said quietly, shame creeping into his voice. You were right, I replied calmly. I had nothing to you. I signed the papers without hesitation. 2 vehicles, one for myself, one donated to a local shelter for outreach workers who helped people like the man I had been that night on the sidewalk. Outside, Eric followed me, his steps rushed, desperate. Dad, please, we made a mistake. You can come back home, we didn't know. I stopped and turned to him. I felt something strange, not anger, not hatred, just clarity. No, I said gently, you didn't make a mistake, you made a choice. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. I raised you to stand by people when they're weak, I continued, not abandon them when they stop looking useful. His eyes filled with tears. Mine didn't. I had cried enough already alone on a bench under flickering lights. Now I live quietly near a lake. Mornings are slow, evenings are peaceful. I fund scholarships anonymously. I donate to shelters because I know what it feels like to be discarded and judged by appearances. Eric calls sometimes, I answer sometimes. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing peace without bitterness. If there's one lesson in my story, it's this. Never judge a person by what they wear, drive, or show you. Some of the richest people live simply, and some of the poorest hearts live behind locked doors. That night I lost a home, but I kept my dignity.